And we're live. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I've got a glass of one of my favorite single malt whiskeys, a mug of a very cold Coke, and I have a ban list to discuss. Yeah, Bandai did some announcements today, and they actually announced the ban list. So let's first start with that. Let me just pull up the image. So these are the banned cards. The announcement came today, right after they finished the finals for the championship for 2024-2025 season of One Piece, which, by the way, Lucci won. I think the finals was Lucci against Shanks, and Lucci won 2-1, which was nice to see. And then right after, they added the ban list where they hit Lucci, kind of making him unplayable. So let's see the cards, let's go through them. They're in Japanese here, so I'll just bring up the English versions on the official website as well. So this card, character card, Gecko Moria from OP6. Let's bring it up. I'll just use this card list from their official website. Moria, I did open so many. This is done. So the card, then 8 cost, 9000 power. On play, choose up to one character with a cost of 4 or less and up to one character with a cost of 2 or less from your trash. Play one card active and play the other one rested. So this is basically allowing you to recur cards from your graveyard. Now, most of the black decks were actually using this card. Since they released it last year, a lot of people have been complaining that it was OP. There were some expectations around banning this card since last year's event, last year's finals, but it didn't. So biggest decks that got hit by the ban of this card are Lucci, which is also the deck that won, because this allowed him to get out a Rebecca blocker and then get out the Spandine that he could use to get out the 4-cost Lucci as well. So he could also KO 2 characters by playing a 8-cost 9000 power body on the field and the blocker in the same turn, which is quite an insane value turn. An additional deck that this thing also hit was Black Yellow Luffy. Black Yellow Luffy, which is let me just pull up the deck. Where is it? Leader. Black, yellow. Can I select multiple? Hey, which is a starter deck. Where is it? Oh, come on. Ay. Yes, this one. This is another one of the top decks. It's been topping in all of the treasure cups in the past, treasure cups and regionals as well. So your face up life cards are being placed at the bottom of your deck instead of being added to your hand according to the rules. Dawn ×2, activate main. You may trash 1 card from your hand. If you have 0 life cards, add up to 2 characters to the cost of 5 from your hand or trash to the top of your life cards face up. So what this does, they had the little brothers, the 2-cost brothers. So this leader used Moria to be able to recur the little brothers from trash, to play them on field, have the 2 Dawn to heal up 2 cards in his life, and then sacrifice the 2 little brothers to get to summon the ones from life to the field and turn this leader into a 9k leader, which again made it quite annoying. Like he could already do that if he played the little brothers from his hand, but Moria allowed him to do this multiple times, and depending on how many Morias you would see, the matchup would have been way more difficult to win. Other big impacts for the Moria ban, looking at the black leaders, Smoker used Moria as well. Less value than Lucci though, because he was more bringing about bringing the blockers and maybe cost reduction. So less of a threat than Lucci posed. Moria itself, the leader, also got heavily impacted by this. I've seen some people play it in the OB11 because it has a way to trash cards from your hand, so it's pretty good against blue-purple Luffy. But now, since they banned Moria from its deck list, this makes this deck really weak. Other decks that are impacted: Purple-Black Luffy. That's also a deck that has been impacted as well, which is one of the newer decks. It's an OP9 deck. He was relying on Moria to get more value on the field, so you would use your Moria to be able to play blockers, the 4-cost Frankie blocker, that returns Dawn and draws you cards, and then also a Law from your trash, so you can search for another Straw Hat card type. So you basically play a Moria, get a blocker, and then draw 2 cards while filtering 1 from your hand, plus also getting 1 active, ramping 1 active down due to the leader's ability. So again, pretty strong value play, which is now no longer possible. So I don't know how viable this deck will be without Moria. Moria wasn't the only thing banned. Another thing that was banned was Jinbe. A lot of people that are familiar with Dofi, this is another one of the top metas, would recognize that card. So let's go Jinbe. Okay, all card types. There you go. So this guy, 4 cost, 5000 power, 1k counter. On play up to 1 the 7 Warlords of the Sea type character card with a cost of 4 or less other than Jinbe from your hand. Now this is a card that Doflamingo uses to flood the board, and actually most of the blue decks use them to flood the board. Doflamingo, Boa, Sanji and Zoro and Sanji, the green blue Zoro and Sanji, all of them pretty decent decks. Dofi being outstandingly good because he's, I think, the most played leader in the past 6 months maybe across all of the ranked tournaments. So this card, there's some people that speculate that the Dofi is still viable without this card. I personally don't think so. I think this card helped him swarm the board enough to be viable in most of the matchups. Now, with the other tools that he has access to, and not being able to effectively swarm the board as well, I don't think he's gonna be as good, to be honest. I think Dofi is gonna really fall from grace quite hard with this ban. The annoying thing is that this card also hits Boa. Boa was already barely viable, and now again I think she's maybe not as impacted, to be honest. But Jinbe was a good addition for her deck. And Zoro and Sanji really got the power boost when this Jinbe was out, because that deck relies on returning cards to your hand to be able to restand. So this is Zoro and Sanji. I'm talking about the starter deck 12-1. Dawn times 1, when attacking once per turn, you may return 1 character with the cost of 2 or more to the owner's hand. Set up to 1 of your characters with 7000 power or less as active. So you would play the Jinbe into a Weaver or something else, and then you'd be able to, next turn you'd be able to swing twice with that. You'd be able to swing with the Weaver, swing with the Jinbe, add Dawn to the Weevil, 1 Dawn to the Weevil, for example, swing 7 with the Weevil, return Jinbe back to your hand with the leader ability, restand Weevil, swing again another 7, and then replay Jinbe into something else from your hand. So it was a really strong combo, and enabled this leader to be able to do his leader effect without costing him like another turn. Because most of the times you need to make sure you have 2 characters on your board to be able to use your leader ability. So Jinbe helped you doing that from the get-go. So I think it has a really big impact into this deck, and it kind of affects how good it is. Next card that was banned, which honestly I'm happy that this card was banned. Like, this is so off balance compared to anything else in terms of Dawn minusing from the deck. Ice Age, this event. Ice Age, a 1-cost event. And let me just bring up the English version of it. It's black. There you go. 1 cost. Main, give up to one of your opponent's characters -5 cost during this turn. Besides this, trigger, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 3 or less. So this card is insane. It makes the matchup for any black deck go way more easy. They don't have to think about a lot of stuff. Like, for 1 Dawn, -5 cost, there is no other card that's comparable to this one. Which is, I think it was a bit imbalanced since it got released, and now I'm happy that this one is banned, to be honest. Like, you had turns against Lucci, where Lucci, with 10 Dawn, he could remove like 18, 19 Dawn worth of value, while also playing out a blocker and an attacker, which is just insane. That's just insane. You're not supposed to be able to do that. That's too much. That's 2 turns that you invalidate from your opponent without him being able to do anything about it, right? So yeah, I'm happy that Ice Age was blocked. I was a Sakazuki player, and I did play Ice Age, and I thought then as well that it's really unfair, to be honest. And now with Lucci that gets another -1 for free, it's no. And the last card that was banned, Kingdom Come. Now this is a newer card. It's from EB01. It's a yellow event. Let me just search for it. Kingdom. 6 cost. Main. KO up to one of your opponent's characters. Then trash cards from the top of your life cards until you have 1 life card left. Now this card is mainly used in it was mainly used in NL decks, but 2 other decks that have been using it quite heavily as well were Black Yellow Luffy, which already got hit by the Moria and the Ice Age. Getting hit by this as well kind of killed it completely. It's not the biggest impact, to be fair. Moria I think was the biggest impact, but still, Kikimoria is down. NL, this was something that NL could easily play because NL can always re-heal his final life, so it's not as punishing for him as is this for other yellow decks to play this card. Another deck that was actually hit by this, and I think it's gonna affect it heavily how good it would be in the meta, is Vegapunk as well. So Vegapunk, which is a leader that already has low life, and it's another yellow leader that's fine to stay with low life in general. Let me just pull up the leader. This guy. This leader cannot attack. He's yellow, 5000 power. Activate main once per turn, pay a Dawn. Select up to 1 egghead type card with the cost of 5 or less from your hand and play it, or add it to the top of your life cards face up. So because of his ability, you're already started to life and you can easily go down to 1. You can easily go down to 1 and then flood your board blockers. So you're comfortable playing that Kingdom Come event in this deck. And I think he also got either in this in OP10 or maybe it's top 11. No, I think in OP10 I think he actually got some really good support, which made this deck quite viable, especially against Dofi. But now, since they removed its KO potential or removal potential for the big bodies, I don't know how viable this will be. Because at the moment he only has Yamato, which KOs based on life, and you already have only 2 life, so it's kind of difficult to get you and your opponent's life to a higher number to be able to KO it. And Katakuri, which can only deal with an 8 cost. The main target for Katakuri was Gecko Moria anyways, especially against black decks, and now Moria is banned, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen with this deck, but it's gonna be unfortunate. So just to recap, we have Gecko Moria that impacts Lucci, Black Yellow Luffy, Moria, and Purple Black Luffy in a very negative way. Makes these decks borderline unplayable. We have the Jinbe ban, which impacts Boa, Dofi, Green Blue, Zoro, and Sanji, which again, in my opinion, makes Dofi and Zoro and Sanji borderline unplayable. I think Boa is still viable even without Jinbe. Yeah, it loses a bit of power, but she was reliant on big cost bodies anyways, so I don't think it affects her that much. We have Ice Age ban, which makes me really happy, which affects Lucci, Black Yellow Luffy, Moria, and Black Luffy, the starter deck Luffy. Again, like he was seeing some viability because he could use the Ice Age into the 5 cost Sanji to KO I think a 9 cost. Now he can't anymore. And Kingdom Come, that affects Black Yellow Luffy, NL, and Vegapunk. So it seems like all of the top decks have been severely affected by this ban list, which honestly, it's great. I think this is awesome to see. Like I think that there's a big issue when most of the played or most of the topping decks are the same ones across multiple sets. I don't think that should happen because it makes the set that gets released a bit irrelevant. And I know a lot of people are already complaining that OP10 does not really see any sort of shift in the meta. Yeah, Teach gets some more power and he gets a bit stronger, but Dofi would still be the... Ooh, that is a very good point about... Yeah, I guess we can actually discuss a bit about some speculations on what other decks might be the top decks in the meta. Now, advantage, as I mentioned, of this bans is that there's a lot of decks that are no longer gate kept by these 3. So it's really good to see, especially now because OP10 is going to release in the West, next week? So it's going to be interesting to see also all sorts of new decks. Now, I do have a speculative list of the potential top metas. So some of the top leaders that I think will be, or some of the decks that I think will be top decks in this new meta. Purple Luffy, he did not get hit. He was already topping some of the events, some of the treasure cups, some of the regionals. So I think he's now even more relevant. He's gonna be even more relevant in the meta. Bonnie, yeah, Bonnie. Bonnie was struggling against black decks, and there was that deck with adding the 7-cost blocker in to try to mitigate the removal. Now you don't need that anymore. That frees up 4 spaces for more value plays. So I think Bonnie is gonna be one of the top metas in the format as well. I think this Smoker has a lot of potential. It's a new OP10 leader. It plays the green kid, and now because black isn't as good at removing stuff, I think we're gonna go back towards a meta that's more focused on defending your numbers rather than having higher cost stuff. So I think that 8-cost kid is gonna be really big in this new meta as well. Yellow kid. I think this is a really strong deck. To be honest, it doesn't do really well in very high aggro decks or decks that have a lot of removal, which were both Dofi and Lucci. And since those two are out, I think this is a very, very, very strong deck in the new format. So I'm curious to see what this will do in the next events. This guy. This is my favorite leader so far. Red Purple Luffy. I think Red Purple Luffy has a pretty decent matchup in most decks, and it did struggle against Lucci, and it did struggle against Dofi. If you see your pieces, then it's not that bad, but if you don't see your pieces, then you're kind of losing against Dofi. So now that Dofi is no longer swarming, I don't think them being able to just play 1 or 2 characters a turn is gonna help them give the amount of pressure that it needs to be able to overcome or to overrun this Luffy. So I think this Luffy is gonna be top meta, and I'm gonna be doing some gameplay with him a bit later on because he's one of my favorites. I think Uta is also viable, to be honest. Lucci was gatekeeping Uta quite a bit. Dofi was gatekeeping Uta quite a bit, and I think Uta is gonna be viable again. And it's a green deck. It's reliant on it has its own like spamming the board type thing. It has its KO with the Shanks, with the 9-cost Shanks. So I think Uta again is very viable and a very strong deck in the new meta. So I think Teach is probably gonna be the top dog in the meta. He already got the Liberation in this set in OP10, and it seems to be really, really strong. It already seemed to be doing pretty well before the ban list. Now I'm guessing a lot more people are gonna switch to Teach, especially everybody that was playing Lucci or Black Yellow Luffy. And Shanks I think is gonna be a top deck as well. He's already topping in the finals this morning. In the world finals, it got 2nd place. It got defeated by a Lucci, but it did manage to take 1 game from the Lucci. So I think Shanks is very strong and will stay strong in the new meta. Velobetti. I think this is such an aggro deck. It's very good into RP Luffy. I saw it's very good into the blue-purple Luffy as well. So I think people that want to play aggro decks probably switch to, or probably lean towards Velobetti as well. It has a very strong ability. For the cost of 1 card, you get plus 9k basically, because you can buff up 3 of your revolutionary army or trigger characters with the trigger with 3000 power. And it has a lot of, because it's also yellow, it has a lot of trigger characters to play for free on the field. So it's a really high aggro and explosive deck, and I think it was gate kept by Dofi. You couldn't even play this against Dofi, because Dofi would just bounce your entire board up and that's it. And Lucci as well would just very easily KO your entire board. But now, since those 2 are gone, I think it has a really, really good shot. And I think it has a really good shot against Teach as well, because her ability is activate main. So even if you don't get necessarily to use your on plays, you still have a lot of characters that have when attacking, a lot of effects that are when attacking. So I think it's pretty good into Teach as well. So yeah, this is my speculative list for top decks in the following period of time. I guess we'll see starting April. We'll see what's happening in the ranked scene, in the competitive scene in the West, and see how the meta evolves. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, leave a comment. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers!